Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Tiny girl pets galaxy's deadliest dragon. The Council's reaction will shock you. Captain Felix Dr's mission to the remote planet of Vera was routine, or so he had thought. For years, the Galactic Council had strictly contained Kalair, a massive, fearsome alien dragon whose reputation was a mix of legend and nightmare. Kalair's scales were as hard as star steel, his eyes a fierce amber that seemed to pierce any soul foolish enough to meet his gaze. He had been captured after a fierce battle with Council forces years ago, and his power made him the Council's most feared and closely guarded prisoner, stationed on Vera. Felix's task was to oversee the containment facility and ensure that Kalair remained securely held. Every officer knew the risks associated with Kalair. His fiery breath could melt steel, and his sheer size and strength could easily topple a building. The Council's strictest orders had left no room for misinterpretation. Kalair was not to be interacted with beyond basic maintenance. One story, after another afternoon, Felix was making his rounds through the compound, passing by Kalair's enclosure. The creature's growls echoed ominously in the cavernous chamber, a reminder of the raw, untamed power within those walls. But something strange caught Felix's eye on the surveillance feed, a tiny blip that wasn't supposed to be there, just outside the containment zone. His heart skipped a beat as he zoomed in on the feed. There, inside the high-security perimeter, stood a young girl. Felix blinked, wondering if the footage was a mistake. But as he adjusted the camera, the reality became undeniable. She was indeed standing inside the enclosure, and what was even more shocking was her lack of fear. She was leaning against the containment barrier, a look of calm on her face as she gazed up at Kalair, who was watching her with a curious but uncharacteristically gentle gaze. Felix moved swiftly, entering the control room and preparing to activate the emergency override to close off the containment area. Yet as he watched the screen, he felt a strange hesitation. The girl was smiling, her expression completely devoid of fear. In fact, she seemed to be talking to Kalair, her lips moving in a quiet rhythm that the cameras couldn't capture, and Kalair, the most deadly and ferocious creature the galaxy had ever known, was listening. Felix's shock grew as he observed the interaction. Kalair's usual hostile stance had softened, his posture was relaxed as he regarded the young girl. It was as if the dragon's ferocity had been pacified, replaced by a calm curiosity. This was impossible. Every Council record described Kalair as a creature of unmatched aggression, one who had attacked anything that entered his vicinity, regardless of size or species. Driven by equal parts concern and fascination, Felix left the control room and hurried to the containment zone. The Council would never allow a civilian, especially a young girl, to be near Kalair, and he knew he had to intervene before disaster struck. As he approached the thick glass barrier separating him from the girl and the dragon, Felix saw her more clearly. She couldn't have been more than 12 or 13, with dark hair tied back and a determined expression that belied her age. "Hey, Felix," he called out, trying to sound firm but not alarmed. "What are you doing here? This area is restricted." The girl turned around, blinking in surprise. Her gaze was sharp, assessing him, before she gave a small, defiant smile. "I'm just talking to him. He's not as bad as everyone says." Felix stared at her in disbelief. "Do you know who that is?" "That's Kalair, the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. You need to step away from him right now." But the girl shook her head, unfazed. "He's not dangerous to me, he's lonely." She turned back to Kalair, who rumbled softly, his massive head lowering to her level, his eyes focused on her with an intensity that made Felix's blood run cold. The girl placed a gentle hand on the barrier, as if reaching out to Kalair, and to Felix's astonishment, Kalair mimicked her by pressing a clawed paw against the glass, aligning it with her hand. The sight was surreal, like a scene from a dream. Felix had seen Kalair rend metal and break bones with those same claws, yet here he was, pressing gently against the glass, a creature of terror displaying an almost tender reverence. "What's your name?" Felix asked, his voice softer now, his mind struggling to process what he was witnessing. The girl turned back to him, her eyes alight with quiet confidence. "I'm Lena. I heard about K-Layer from some people in town, and I wanted to see him for myself. Everyone talks about how scary he is, but I don't see it that way." Felix was at a loss for words. "You don't understand, K-Layer has caused more destruction than you can imagine. He's not some misunderstood creature, he's dangerous." Lena tilted her head, her gaze thoughtful. "Maybe he was dangerous because everyone treated him that way. But look at him now, he doesn't seem like a monster to me." Felix looked back at K-Layer, the dragon's intense gaze meeting his own. He felt a chill run down his spine as he realized Lena might be right. K-Layer's expression was devoid of the usual aggression Felix had come to expect. Instead, there was an awareness, a calm acceptance, as if he were choosing not to harm the girl who had come to visit him. But as incredible as the scene was, Felix knew the council would not tolerate such an interaction. K-Layer was seen as an asset, one of raw power and destruction, and allowing a human, especially a child, to befriend him would defy every protocol in place. "Lena," Felix said slowly, "the council won't allow this. They see K-Layer as a threat, and they'll do whatever it takes to keep him under control." Lena glanced at him, a flash of defiance in her eyes. "Then maybe they're the ones who need to change how they see him." Felix couldn't help but feel a strange respect for the girl's bravery and conviction. Her presence had clearly made an impact on K-Layer and, in turn, was beginning to change something within Felix himself. Yet he knew that if word got out, the council would take drastic measures. "Listen," he said in a serious tone, "if you want to keep seeing him, you'll need to be careful. If the council finds out, they'll double down on K-Layer's containment. They may even take extreme measures to prevent any attachment." Lena nodded, determination filling her eyes. "I'll be careful, but I won't stop coming here. He deserves a friend." As Felix watched her turn back to the dragon, a spark of rebellion ignited in his own heart. For years, he had followed the council's orders without question, but Lena's friendship with K-Layer was challenging everything he believed. Perhaps, just perhaps, K-Layer was more than the monster the council had made him out to be. Leaving Lena and K-Layer in their silent understanding, Felix returned to his control room, his mind racing with conflicting emotions. He knew one thing for sure: this strange friendship between a human girl and the galaxy's deadliest dragon was going to change everything. Deep down, he even felt a stir of excitement, and maybe even hope, that he hadn't felt in years. The next morning, Felix's peace was shattered. News of Lena's breach into K-Layer's containment had somehow reached the Galactic Council, sparking a furious response. Felix received an urgent message, and as he opened the holocom, the image of Envoy Larth, one of the Council's senior officials, flickered into view. Her expression was a mix of shock and outrage. "Captain Drake L," her voice was icy, her eyes narrowed, "is it true that a human girl managed to infiltrate the containment zone and engage with K-Layer?" Felix kept his face neutral, his mind racing. "Yes, Envoy. She managed to bypass security, but I handled it. She was removed from the vicinity shortly after." Lartha's eyes flashed with anger. "You handled it? This is beyond unacceptable. The Council's directive regarding K-Layer is clear: no interaction, no exceptions. That creature is a threat to every system within 100 light-years." Felix swallowed, choosing his words carefully. With respect, Envoy Larth, his reaction to the girl was unexpected. He displayed no aggression, no signs of hostility. She calmed him. "I've never seen anything like it." Lartha's mouth twisted in disgust. "Calmed him? Captain, K-Layer is a weapon, a danger that must be contained at all costs. Whatever connection this girl thinks she has with him is an illusion, a risk that jeopardizes everything we've built." Felix bristled at the word weapon. He had seen K-Layer's raw power, yes, but he had also witnessed something gentler in the dragon's eyes as he interacted with Lena. With all due respect, Envoy Larth, K-Layer seemed to recognize her. It's possible there's more to him than we've assumed. Lartha's gaze hardened. That kind of thinking is precisely why the Council has kept Kalair in isolation. We cannot afford sentiment right now. Any attempt to interact with the creature is strictly forbidden, and the girl, Lena, must be barred from entering the containment area. Felix clenched his jaw. Understood, Envoy. Good, Larth said coldly. If you fail to uphold this directive, Captain, there will be consequences. The Council will not hesitate to replace you with someone more compliant. The holocom flickered off, leaving Felix alone in the silence of the control room, his mind spinning with anger and dismay. The Council's rigid stance felt increasingly misguided, almost cruel. He had seen firsthand that Kalair was more than a mindless weapon, and Lena, against all odds, had found a way to reach the dragon. As he thought of the Council's threat, Felix's resolve hardened. He knew he couldn't turn Lena away, not when she might be the key to understanding Kalair. The risk was immense, but so was the possibility of discovering a truth the Council refused to see. Later that evening, as the facility's lights dimmed, Felix made his way to Lena's quarters. He found her pacing, her face troubled, and she looked up with relief when he entered. "Are they going to stop me?" she asked quietly, a flicker of fear in her eyes. Felix hesitated, then nodded. "The Council knows. They've ordered that you stay away from Kalair, but I think they're wrong." Her voice softened as she replied, "Lena, what you have with him, it's remarkable. I don't think he's the monster they've painted him to be." Lena's face lit up with hope. "So I can still see him, not officially?" Felix cautioned, "We have to be discreet. The Council is monitoring everything, but I'll help you. If you go at night, we can minimize the risk." Lena nodded, determination filling her eyes. "Thank you, Captain." That night, under Felix's watchful eye, Lena returned to Kalair's containment area. She moved with silent confidence, slipping past security measures with a grace that surprised Felix. They reached the enclosure, and Kalair was there, his massive form illuminated by the moonlight filtering through the dome above. As soon as he saw Lena, Kalair's demeanor changed. His intense gaze softened, his head lowering to her level. As she approached, Lena placed a hand on the glass barrier, and Kalair mirrored her movement, pressing his enormous clawed hand against the same spot. Felix watched, his heart pounding. He had witnessed creatures tamed before, but nothing like this. Kalair's transformation in the presence of Lena defied everything he'd been taught. It was as though the dragon recognized her, trusted her, and even cared for her. Lena began talking to Kalair, her voice soft and calming. "Kalair," she whispered, "I know you've been alone for a long time, and I know people are afraid of you, but you're not alone anymore. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Kalair's eyes closed briefly, as if savoring her words, his massive body rumbling with a sound that Felix could only describe as contentment. Felix's admiration for Lena grew as he watched her bring out the best in what the Council had called a monster. Despite their cold view, she had connected with Kalair on a level no one could have expected, and in doing so, she was revealing truths the Council had refused to acknowledge. But even as he marveled at their bond, Felix knew they were walking a dangerous path. The Council's patience was limited, and any hint of disobedience would bring swift and severe consequences. Yet his conviction only strengthened. "Lena, Kalair has the potential to change the Council's perception of creatures like him, and I can't let fear stop us," he said. As they left the enclosure that night, Felix turned to Lena, his voice barely above a whisper, "If we're going to keep this up, you need to be more careful than ever. The Council is watching, and they won't tolerate any more surprises." Lena looked up at him, her face fierce. "I'll be careful, but I won't abandon him, Captain. I won't let him be alone again." Felix felt a surge of pride. Their pact was sealed in silence, a quiet rebellion against the fear and ignorance that had dictated the galaxy's treatment of beings like Kalair for too long. Together, they would challenge the Council's perspective and fight for the right of a dragon who, against all odds, had become more than just a feared creature. He had become a friend. Under the cover of night, Lena continued to visit Kalair, her secret friendship with the alien dragon becoming a ritual. Every evening, Felix would stand watch from a safe distance, his heart pounding as he observed their interactions. He had never seen a creature respond to a human the way Kalair did. It was as if she could speak to him on a level no one else understood. One night, as Lena pressed her hand against the glass, Kalair tilted his head, his amber eyes gleaming with a strange intelligence. Felix watched in awe as Kalair tapped his claw against the glass, mimicking the rhythm of Lena's heartbeat, creating a silent conversation. The girl and the dragon shared a bond that went beyond words, an understanding that seemed to transcend species. Kalair, Lena whispered, her voice carrying a mixture of empathy and curiosity, what's it like to be locked up here all the time, to be so alone? Kalair let out a low, mournful sound, his eyes filled with something akin to sorrow. Felix felt a pang in his chest. He had always followed orders, enforcing the council's will without question, but seeing the pain in Kalair's gaze made him question everything. Was it truly justifiable to keep such a creature confined and isolated? Was it possible that the council's policies were driven more by fear than by actual necessity? Lena continued softly, I'm here for you, Kalair. I don't care what anyone else says, you're not just a monster to me. In response, Kalair pressed his snout gently against the glass, his lethal form displaying an astonishing tenderness. Felix found himself moved, his respect for Lena grew even deeper. She saw the world in a way few others did, refusing to judge by appearance or reputation, instead seeing the heart within the beast, a heart that no one else had taken the time to understand. As they left the enclosure that night, Lena glanced up at Felix, her eyes questioning, do you think the council will ever understand Kalair, or will they always just see him as a weapon? Felix sighed, his doubts gnawing at him. The council has its rules, Lena, they're bound by a fear of what Kalair represents. But I think there's hope. What you're doing, showing Kalair kindness, could change everything. Lena smiled, her determination unwavering. Then I'll keep trying. Even as they walked back to the compound, Felix knew their time was limited, the council's patience was running thin, and if they discovered that Lena's visits continued, the consequences would be severe. He made a silent promise to himself, he would do everything in his power to protect this bond, even if it meant defying the very authority he served. One evening, as Lena and Felix made their way to Kalair's enclosure, Felix noticed something unusual, a faint, pulsing light blinking from a corner of the containment room. It was a hidden surveillance device. His heart skipped a beat, the council had installed additional surveillance, likely in response to the earlier security breach. He quickly stopped Lena, gesturing for silence. Lena, we're being watched, he whispered urgently. Her eyes widened in understanding. So they'll know I've been coming here. Felix nodded, his mind racing for a solution. We need to be careful. If they catch you here, they won't hesitate to separate you from Kalair, or even escalate his containment, or even terminate him. Lena's face paled, her expression a mixture of shock and anger. They'd kill him if they see him as too much of a risk. Yes, Felix replied grimly. We have to play this carefully. We can't give them a reason to escalate. Determined not to give up, Lena steadied herself. I'll be careful, but I'm not stopping. Kalair needs me. They devised a plan using a nearby observation room with minimal surveillance as a meeting place, where they could continue to communicate with Kalair even if it was from a slight distance. Felix modified the surveillance feeds, creating a false loop that would obscure their visits. At their next meeting, Kalair immediately sensed the change. As Lena entered the observation room and waved through the glass, Kalair tilted his head, confusion evident in his eyes. But as soon as Lena began to speak, his attention shifted fully to her. Kalair, Lena murmured, pressing her hand against the glass, we have to be careful, they don't want us together, but I won't leave you alone. Kalair rumbled softly, his expression a mixture of understanding and frustration. Watching from the shadows, Felix saw the fierce protectiveness in the dragon's gaze, a protectiveness that mirrored his own feelings for Lena. He realized that Kalair didn't see her as just another human, she was his friend, and he would defend her just as fiercely. Even as they managed to keep the Council's surveillance at bay, Felix's sense of foreboding grew. The Council's scrutiny would only intensify, and he knew they couldn't keep this hidden forever. The moment of truth was approaching, and he would have to choose between his loyalty to the Council and his newfound loyalty to Lena and Kalair. One evening, as they prepared to leave, Lena turned to Felix, her voice barely above a whisper, "Thank you, Captain, for everything. I know this isn't easy for you." Felix gave her a reassuring smile. "You're braver than I could ever be, Lena. Seeing you with Kalair has made me realize that the world isn't as black and white as the Council wants it to be." They left the enclosure that night under a cloak of secrecy, but Felix's mind was heavy with the reality of their situation. The bond between Lena and Kalair was powerful and beautiful, yet dangerous. If the Council discovered the depth of their connection, they would do everything in their power to sever it. Still, Felix knew he couldn't stop now. Lena had shown him a different side of Kalair, and in doing so, a different side of himself. He was no longer just a soldier, he was a protector, ready to safeguard the bond that had brought them together. Days later, Felix's worst fear materialized. A message from the Council arrived, demanding an urgent review of Kalair's containment. The Council had grown suspicious of recent security anomalies, and their patience was running thin. Felix was ordered to attend a high-level briefing on Vera where the Council would determine Kalair's fate. He knew this was a veiled threat, a warning that Kalair's dangerous influence would no longer be tolerated. As Felix entered the Council chamber, he felt the weight of their cold, unyielding stares. Envoy Larth stood at the forefront, her expression stern and unforgiving. "Captain Drake," she began, her voice dripping with disdain, "we are aware of your unconventional methods in overseeing Kalair. Your repeated lapses in security protocol have been noted." Felix maintained his neutral expression. "With respect, Envoy Larth, my observations have led me to believe that Kalair may not pose the risk we initially assumed. He has shown restraint and intelligence. There may be a way to work with him, rather than treat him as a mere threat." Lartha's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting that the Council's protocols, established for the safety of all, are misguided?" Felix held her gaze, his voice firm. "I believe there's more to Kalair than we've allowed ourselves to see. He's developed a bond with a young human, a girl named Lena, and she has an extraordinary influence on him. I propose that we continue this observation to better understand his potential." A heavy silence fell over the room as Felix sensed the discomfort and distrust among the Council members, their narrow worldview unable to accommodate the possibility that a dragon could form a bond with a human. Finally, Envoy Lartha's voice turned icy. "Enough, Captain. The Council has tolerated your leniency long enough. Kalair's nature cannot be changed, nor will we risk allowing him any influence beyond his containment." Felix felt a wave of frustration and fear wash over him. He had expected resistance, but not an outright denial of Kalair's capacity for trust. "The Council's decision is final," Larth continued. "If Kalair is unable to be contained, we will take measures to terminate him." The word struck Felix like a physical blow. He knew then that the Council would never accept Kalair, regardless of the dragon's behavior. Their decision was rooted in fear and prejudice. Suppressing his anger, Felix responded calmly, "Envoy, I urge you to reconsider. Kalair is intelligent, capable of connection, he deserves a chance to live freely." Lartha's expression remained unmoved. "The Council will deliberate further, but understand this, Captain, any further breaches will result in immediate termination for both Kalair and anyone else involved." With that ultimatum, Felix was dismissed. The Council's lack of understanding pressed down on him like a weight. He returned to Lena, knowing that the time for secrecy was over. If they wanted to save Kalair, they would have to act soon, and risk everything. Back at the containment facility, Felix found Lena waiting anxiously. He could see the concern in her eyes as she studied his expression. Without a word, he guided her to a quiet corner and shared the council's decision. "They're planning to terminate him," he said quietly, the weight of his words hitting him again. "If they see him as too much of a risk, they won't hesitate." Lena's face paled, but then her eyes filled with determination. "We have to get him out of here, Captain. We can't let them hurt him." Felix nodded, his own resolve solidifying. "I was thinking the same thing, but it won't be easy. The facility is heavily guarded and they're watching both of us closely." They began devising a plan, going over every detail and possibility. Felix knew the layout of the containment area better than anyone, and together they mapped out a route that would allow them to bypass security checkpoints and disable surveillance. It was risky, one misstep could lead to capture, but they had no other choice. Their plan hinged on timing and stealth. They would have to execute the escape at night, when security rotations were at their weakest. Felix would disable the power grid temporarily, allowing them to slip through the facility's defenses. From there, Kalair would lead them to the outer perimeter, using his strength to break through the barriers. Felix turned to Lena, his voice serious. "If we do this, there's no going back. The council will label us as fugitives, and will be hunted. Are you ready for that?" Lena looked up at him, her face resolute. "I'm ready. Kalair is worth it." Her words filled Felix with a renewed sense of purpose. This was more than a rescue, it was a stand against the council's blind prejudice. They were fighting for Kalair's freedom and for the right to live without fear. That night, as darkness settled over the facility, Felix and Lena slipped out of their quarters and moved toward the containment zone. Felix's heart pounded as he deactivated the outer defenses, praying that his calculations were accurate. They had precious little time before the backup generators kicked in and alerted security. Entering Kalair's enclosure, they found the dragon alert, as if sensing their intentions. Felix held his breath as Lena approached, placing a gentle hand on his snout. "We're going to get you out of here," she whispered, "but you need to trust us." Kalair's gaze was intense, his golden eyes gleaming in the darkness. With a soft rumble, he lowered his head, a silent agreement sealing their pact. Felix led them through the corridors, bypassing the remaining security systems and guiding Kalair toward the outer walls. The dragon moved with astonishing silence, his massive form ghost-like in the shadows. They reached the final barrier, a thick, reinforced wall meant to keep him contained. Felix turned to Kalair, nodding. "This is it. You'll have to break through with a powerful roar." Kalair lunged at the barrier, his claws digging into the reinforced metal. Sparks flew as he tore through the wall, his strength overcoming the last obstacle. The wall gave way, revealing the open plains beyond the facility. Felix and Lena hurried through the breach, with Kalair following close behind. The night sky stretched before them, vast and free. Felix felt a surge of relief as they crossed into the open, the facility shrinking behind them. Yet their escape hadn't gone unnoticed, alarms blared, and Felix saw the flash of lights as security teams mobilized. He turned to Lena urgently. "We have to keep moving, they won't give up easily." They pushed forward, navigating the unfamiliar terrain with Kalair leading the way. The dragon's instincts guided them, his powerful strides covering the ground swiftly despite the dangers. Felix felt an unshakable sense of purpose. They were no longer bound by the council's fear, they were guided by something stronger, something worth fighting for. As they disappeared into the wilderness, Felix looked at Lena and Kalair, determination filling him. Together, they had defied the council, risking everything to protect a friendship that transcended species and challenged the very fabric of the galaxy's rules. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time, they were free to chart their own path, bound not by fear but by trust, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between a human, a captain, and a dragon. The wilderness of Vera stretched vast and unforgiving, but Felix, Lena, and Kalair pressed on. The sounds of pursuit, the hum of tracking drones, and the distant shouts of soldiers echoed through the rocky canyons. The council's forces were relentless, determined to reclaim or eliminate their most prized asset. Felix led them to a hidden valley he had scouted during his early days on Vera, a place sheltered by high cliffs and thick vegetation where Kalair could rest, hidden from the Council's immediate reach. Though Kalair showed signs of exhaustion, he held himself with dignity, as if understanding the gravity of their journey. "Stay quiet," Felix whispered to Lena as they huddled in the shadows. He watched Kalair with a mixture of admiration and awe. Despite the danger, the dragon exuded a calmness, as though he trusted Felix and Lena completely. Lena crouched beside Kalair, placing a hand on his massive shoulder. "I know you're tired," she murmured. "Just a little longer, Kalair, we'll find a way to keep you safe." Kalair rumbled softly, leaning into her touch. Felix couldn't help but marvel at the bond between them. Kalair, the most feared creature in the galaxy, was now a protector, a friend who had chosen to trust a human girl and a captain despite all orders. Their moments of respite were brief. Suddenly, the sharp, mechanical whir of a drone broke through the silence, scanning the valley. Felix signaled to Kalair, and the dragon responded instantly by lowering himself into the shadows. Felix aimed his blaster, firing a quick shot that hit the drone sensor, sending it spiraling to the ground in a burst of sparks. The immediate threat was neutralized, but Felix knew more would come. The Council's forces were vast and their surveillance technology unmatched. "We need to keep moving," Felix said urgently. "They've picked up that signal, we're running out of time." Just as they prepared to leave, a distant roar echoed through the valley, a chorus of dragon calls answering Kalair's presence. Felix's heart raced. It seemed that Kalair wasn't alone. Others had been kept in containment across the galaxy, neglected and feared, hidden from the public. Kalair's head lifted, his gaze sharpening with recognition and longing. Felix realized that this wasn't just about escape anymore, it was about liberation. Kalair's presence here could ignite something far greater than they had ever imagined. "Kalair," Felix whispered, "there might be others like you, others waiting for a chance to live freely." Lena looked at him, her face filled with determination. "Then let's give them that chance. We can't let the Council keep hiding them away, they deserve freedom." In that moment, Felix made a decision. They would not only fight for Kalair's life but for every creature that had been condemned and caged. This journey wasn't just about escape, it was a rebellion. As the morning sun rose over the valley, casting light on the impending final stand, Felix, Lena, and Kalair prepared to face whatever forces the Council might send after them. They had no illusions about the odds against the Council's firepower and resources. Their chances of survival were slim. Yet, as the Council ship approached, Felix felt the weight of responsibility settle over him. He looked at Lena, her fierce resolve unbroken, and at Kalair, who stood tall, his amber eyes reflecting fierce loyalty. "Lena," Felix said softly but steadily, "if anything happens, I want you to know that you've changed everything. Kalair wouldn't be here, wouldn't be free, if it weren't for you." Lena looked up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and strength. "We did this together, Captain, and we're going to finish it together." Kalair rumbled softly, a sound that carried a promise, a vow to protect the friends who had risked everything for him. As the Council ships descended, Felix and Lena took their positions, prepared to defend Kalair with everything they had. The first wave came swiftly, soldiers pouring out of the ships, their weapons aimed at Kalair. Felix fired precise shots, disabling several soldiers, while Kalair unleashed a roar that shook the ground, his presence alone forcing the enemy to hesitate. But the Council was unrelenting. They deployed specialized tranquilizers and high-powered energy nets designed to subdue even the most powerful creatures. Kalair fought bravely, his massive wings beating against the traps and his fiery breath keeping the soldiers at bay. Lena stayed close by, her voice steady with reassurance as she called out, "Stay with us, Kalair, you're stronger than them." Felix continued to fight, determined to buy them as much time as possible, even though he knew they were outnumbered and his energy reserves were running low. Just as despair began to creep in, a sudden roar echoed across the valley, a chorus of dragon calls answering Kalair from the horizon. A group of dragons appeared, creatures of immense size and strength, their scales gleaming in a spectrum of colors. Drawn by Kalair's call, these dragons had broken free from their containment sites. United by a shared purpose, they overwhelmed the council forces, who were caught by surprise. Kalair led the charge, his roars rallying his fellow dragons as they fought back, each creature a testament to resilience and the desire for freedom. With the combined might of the dragons, the council forces fell back, their ships retreating in disarray. Felix and Lena watched in awe as Kalair and the other dragons pushed their oppressors back, reclaiming the land that had once been their prison. When the battle ended, the valley was silent once more. Felix, exhausted but victorious, looked at Kalair, who now stood among his kind, a free dragon at last. The council's forces had been driven away, their control over the dragons shattered. Lena approached Kalair, tears of joy streaming down her face. "You're free now, Kalair, truly free." Kalair lowered his massive head, pressing his snout gently against Lena's shoulder in a gesture of profound gratitude. Felix joined them, resting a hand on Kalair's side and feeling the warmth of the dragon's scales. "This is only the beginning," Felix murmured. "The galaxy has to see what you've done, Lena, what Kalair and the others are capable of." Together, they watched as the dragons took to the skies, Kalair leading them in a formation of power and grace. They soared above Vera, their wings casting shadows across the valley, a testament to freedom and resilience.